Fast forward, of course, more than 20 years later, in 2018, another local reporter had the chance to sit down with OJ Simpson for a one-on-one interview.
It was the first substantially exclusive interview with the former Bills player since going to prison in 2008. Tim Graham, who's a BKL contributor here for Channel 4 and now works with The Athletic, joins us now. Tim, in 2018, when you interviewed him, I just reread that article. Explain for the viewers why you were the chosen one. I know he was offered a lot of money from people. He turned them down, including Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I think I just appealed to his manager, and he was ready to talk. And I think the fact it was because I was from Buffalo, and he felt some security there, like this is going to be football. And in fact, the very first words out of his mouth when I knocked on the door, and there he was. I mean, and he answers the door, and it's this surreal moment because he's somebody that you see on TV, and, you know, I cover athletes and famous people for a living, but it was just bizarre, and he's wearing a sweater, and he's got, you know, he's puttering around this house. He looked like, I said it in the story, it was like Mr. Rogers. And he couldn't figure out where this confounding dishwasher chirp was coming from. But anyways, it was after that, he's like Buffalo talking proud. You know, it was all about Buffalo. And I think that's what did it. And I think maybe had any other Buffalo reporter reached out to him at that point, they would have gotten it.
If I remember correctly, Tim, I think both in the 2018 article and the 2021 article, a lot of flack online, especially on social media, from people saying, why give this person a platform? And every reporter who ever talked to him probably got that same question. Was there ever any kind of like a moral conflict for you? Or was it for you telling the story? Because that's your job.
That's what it is. It's telling the story. And I think one of the great honors that anybody could give to me is when they say that they felt they were treated fairly. And that was the feedback that I got from OJ Simpson. Now, that in and of itself wasn't what was, I didn't need OJ's approval. Sure. But it was something that if I could treat O.J. Simpson fairly, you can treat anybody fairly, right? So
that's true.
And I've actually used that once or twice in a pitch to somebody who's being a little reluctant to talk. And I said, O.J. Simpson talks to me. I think you could probably talk to me. And sometimes I've gotten an interview once or twice because of that. But yeah, I understand. It is a polarizing, controversial. Why give this guy the time of day? But I also think that there is a newsworthiness when you're talking about one of the most infamous people on the history of the planet, to get inside their minds and find out how they think.
You interviewed him many times since that 2018 article came out. In 2021, you even asked him what he wanted in his obituary. You reposted that article today. Explain what he said to you.
Well, he said that he thought at one point it was going to be the Hertz commercials because those were even bigger than his NFL career. He thought he'd be known as the ultimate pitch man. And then he thought maybe then it was going to be Naked Gun and Nordberg, and then his acting career, it got a little bigger. But then he said, well, and he stopped and I could still picture him doing it. He looked over at the wall, stared blankly, his eyes got really big, and he said, I know they're going to talk about all that other stuff, is how he would call it. He would couch it, and you know that's probably how he gets through his day, almost in a sense of denial. He would call it the L.A. stuff, the L.A. crap, the L.A. whatever he would say, and that was how he would refer to his trial for killing his ex-wife and her friend.
Now it seemed like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, he got the joke, sort of, later in life as he was going through his own trials and tribulations. I think back, of course, to the book. He was doing that to make money, of course. But then I also think about his time with the robberies and his time in prison and things like that. I feel like when he came out of that, talking to you as well, but on social media, he would play into that joke. Do you think that was self-deprecating, or do you think that was more of his denial?
I think it's more denial. And here's a guy, and the most common question I get asked about OJ is, what's he like? And he is one of the nicest people I've ever met. And of course, there's an irony to that. But and then my follow-up is always, no matter what you think, if you think he didn't do it, then here's a guy that you would say there's no possible way he could have done it. If you do think he did it, then you would meet O.J. Simpson and say, that's how you get away with it. Guys, the guy is so nice and charismatic that you would say, however it was, that's how you do it.
I mean, I have to ask, because you spent so much time with him, interview him, Was there any time he ever mentioned anything about saying maybe he did it or maybe he didn't do it to you? I know you mainly talked about sports in those interviews, though.
Well, no, we talked about everything, especially for that athletic story, because the story was, and the premise was for the interview was, what is your legacy going to be? Everything's on the table for that interview. So we did talk about, looking for the real killer or killers, the famous line that he said, and he had a quote in the athletic story saying, I don't go back to Los Angeles because I might be sitting next to the killer. And I think I said something like, oh, really? And he said, I said, do you think you know who did it? And he said, I do, but I can't talk about it. So he would hint at things, but never really go there. He was quick, and this is, again, part of his day-to-day survival instinct, probably, of being in denial to get through your day. He probably just has these mental devices that get him in and out of moments probably as quickly as he can that have been tried and true since 1994.
It's interesting. When people die, oftentimes their story ends there, and it's left to be told by other people. Here we are in this case. But in the case of OJ Simpson, his story is so broad. It is so big. It covers so much, and it's so diverse. Do you think this story ends here and it's left to be written about in history by people like yourself?
I think it is. It's over with. And I've been talking with my editors about it. I've been kind of fighting through a story about OJ Simpson's legacy. They wanted me to write about the legacy. And I said, I think I wrote it 4 years ago, and I don't know that I can do better. I interviewed him about it. I interviewed his teammates about it. People who think he did it, people who think he didn't do it. There's not much more to tell unless we learn a bit of information that I think the cynic in me says we would have heard it by now. And I think that maybe the ultimate answer to what did happen all those years ago probably goes to the grave.
Our producer is telling me to wrap, but I do have one more question here. I know you guys referenced CTE in a couple interviews. You can only tell if a person has CTE after they've died. For people who don't know what that is, it's a disease after you've gotten a certain number of concussions, and it can make you do some pretty crazy things. Do you know, did he tell you, this is what I want done? I want an autopsy done to see if I have CTE
Great
after
question,
my death.
Kelsey. I asked him about it a couple of times. He said he wasn't sure. He also was reluctant to tell me what his plans were when he did die, because we did talk about his death as part of that legacy story. Where will you be buried? Will you be cremated? Because, I don't know. There is a vanity, I guess, with your final resting place that he would probably be, that would be alluring to him, but also it becomes a destination where a lot of things can happen. So he was tight-lipped about that. I'd be fascinated, and I hope that they do donate his brain to the brain bank to be looked at for CTE. He did complain about concussions. He was the most rugged, most used running back in the NFL. Over his time, he carried a lot. He was hit a lot. So I think that there's a lot to be learned there.
Yeah.
Great points. All right, Tim, thanks very much. You can find Tim Graham in The Athletic and all over social media. If you don't follow him, it is certainly worth it. Do it. Do yourself a favor. Tim, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.